What's up everyone, Emerald here from Emerald's Daily Carry, and we are so excited because today we are sharing something pretty special, an exclusive interview with JJ, the head product designer at Bellroy. We got to chat with him about two brand new pieces that are dropping, the Transit Carry-On and the Lite Carry-On, which I have right here. Plus we do a deep dive into Bellroy's overall design philosophies and even get a little sneak peek at what's coming up for the brand heading into the rest of this year. We caught up with JJ during the hustle and bustle of the travel goods show in Las Vegas. And seriously, if you haven't checked out all of our other coverage of the show, you should do it. There was some really wild new products and unique accessories that you won't want to miss out on. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we jump into the awesome conversation with JJ, I thought it would be super helpful to actually walk through some of these new Bellroy bags first. This way you'll have context on our initial thoughts as we dive deeper into the design details with JJ. Think of this as our initial first impressions and not a full review. And hey, if you dig this kind of deep dive into carry gear and exclusive looks, definitely hit that like button and hit subscribe. We've got more interviews like this coming your way and you don't want to miss out. Okay, let's get into these bags. Quick note, we got hands-on time with both of these at the Travel Goods Show back in March. So Bellroy's hitting the ground running, launching both a hard-sided and a soft-sided carry-on at the same time. The hard-sided one falls under their transit line, which makes sense. Think structure, durability, frequent travel. And the soft-sided one that I have here is on the light line, which as you'll see is about shedding weight and moving more freely. Honestly, I think that those distinctions nail the target user for each pretty well. All right, before we dive into the differences, let's talk about the biggest similarity and what I think is probably the most exciting feature across both of these bags is that they are designed to be fully repairable by you, the owner. We're talking major touch points that usually fail on roller bags like the wheels, the handles, and the TSA lock on the transit line. Bellroy plans to make replacement parts available so that you can fix it yourself. Now, I don't know about you, but I genuinely cannot recall seeing mainstream roller luggage designed with this in mind. Am I wrong? Let me know down in the comments if you've seen this before. I love this approach for a couple of reasons. First, it's just less wasteful. Instead of ditching an entire bag because one wheel is busted, you can just replace that part. Second, think about the speed. Imagine your wheel breaking on your trip. Instead of a months-long warranty claim, maybe you could order the part and fix it right there in your hotel room. That's pretty game-changing if you ask me. And this totally aligns with Bellroy's whole vibe. They're a certified B Corp committed to using business as a force for good, focusing on sustainability and making products that last. And this repairability feature, that's not just talk, it's putting that philosophy of longevity and reducing environmental impacts into practice. Adding to that peace of mind, Bellroy is backing both of these carry-ons with a 10-year warranty. Now that is a huge step up from their usual 3 to 6 year warranty on most of their bags. This covers standard manufacturing defects, not normal wear and tear, obviously, but seeing that longer warranty combined with the repair options for the high wear parts, that really shows confidence in the build. Okay, so let's zoom out into the Transit Carry-On. This is the hard-sided 4-wheel spinner that opens book style. It's the larger, heavier, and slightly more premium of the two carry-on bags. So let's break down the specs. You have two sizes, the regular and the plus. The regular comes in at $299 and offers a 41-liter capacity of volume and a listed weight of 6.8 pounds. The plus version bumps that up to $329, giving you a roomier 46-liter capacity and a weight just slightly more than 7 pounds. So if you mainly fly domestic in the US and you want to maximize packing space, the plus is probably the way to go. Color-wise for the Transit, you have 4 options: black, chalk, everglade, and bronze. The shell is a matte polycarbonate, and Bellroy states that it's made out of 80% recycled materials, which ties back into that whole sustainability focus that we just talked about. When we handled it at the show, it was a pretty typical polycarbonate flex, and it feels pretty solid, but it has a little bit of give to absorb impacts. You get a 3-stage telescopic handle with an underside push button that felt pretty smooth in operation. And there's one woven handle on the side for hoisting it up into the overhead bin. Now let's talk about the wheels. The Transit is using Hinomoto silent run wheels, and if you know anything about luggage, you know that Hinomoto is basically the gold standard, renowned for being super smooth, incredibly quiet, and built to last. This is a premium touch that definitely elevates the rolling experience and contributes to that overall quality feel. Inside, it's a classic book bag opening. One side features removable packing cells that act as a divider. They are standard mesh packing cube, so no compression features, but it's nice that they're included. A small but important detail that we notice is that when you lay the bag flat open, the interior packing surface is completely flat. No annoying wheels that are gonna make the thing really wobbly like we've seen on other luggage bags. Really thoughtful design from Bellroy. All right, switching over to the Lite Carry-On. This one is a soft-sided 2-wheeler spinner bag, a tip and pull, opening clamshell style. And the name Lite is no joke. This thing is noticeably lighter than the Transit, giving you a really good volume to weight ratio because you're ditching 2 of those wheels. So how does it stack up against the Transit regular? The Lite Carry-On comes in at $269 and offers 38 liters of volume and weighs a feather light 4.6 pounds. Compare that to the Transit regular's $299 price point and 41 liter volume and 6.8 pound weight. You're saving about $30, giving you slightly less volume, but shedding over 2 pounds in weight, which is pretty significant. The Lite comes in 3 color options: ash, black, and this clay color that I have here. The main body material is Bellroy's Lite Dura Nylon. You'll find this across their entire Lite line, and it's made out of recycled materials. It's super lightweight, like 3 times lighter than their other fabrics, and it has a very distinct, slightly crinkly ripstop texture. It feels really durable to the touch, but also super flexible, and it'll drape and conform to the content a little bit while still offering decent weather protection. You get the same smooth 3-stage telescopic handle as the Transit, but on the Lite version, it actually zips away completely into a dedicated compartment when you're not using it. Super clean look and practical if you ever need to check the bag or just storing it neatly. For wheels, we have 2 TUP wheels, similar for what you would find on rollerblades. These are specifically chosen because they work really well while being tipped and pulled, which is exactly how you would use a 2-wheeled spinner. They felt sturdy and rolled smoothly in our brief test. On the front, there's a handy quick access pocket with some internal stretch mesh and a key leash, perfect for stashing things that you need to grab quickly, like your phone or your passport. And you have handles on all 4 sides, 1 at the top, 2 on the sides, and a little one on the bottom. Opening it up, it's a clamshell design. The front flap has a couple zippered organizational pockets. The main compartment has a large see-through mesh divider in the center, which is really cool because that divider is perfectly sized for a laptop, up to 16 inches. If you do have a 16-inch MacBook Pro, it is going to be a very tight fit, but it does still technically fit. This is great because you can access your laptop super easily. Think going through TSA, or if you're at your gate early, you can like whip out your laptop and do some work without having to unpack all of your clothes, which is a huge plus for convenience. Okay, so we have 2 very different bags from Bellroy, both bringing something unique to the table. Which one is right for you? I think that the Transit Carry-On is going to be perfect for the traveler who prioritizes protection and durability above all else. That hard-sided polycarbonate shell offers more impact resistance for your gear. Also, if you value that super smooth 4-wheel spinner experience for effortless gliding throughout the airports, the Hinomotos deliver that premium feel. And aesthetically, I think it looks a little bit more professional, so if you do travel a lot for business or you just prefer that sleeker hard shell style look, the Transit fits the bill. It's also great if you typically travel with both a roller and a personal item backpack. Those 4 wheels make maneuvering that combo much easier. The Lite Carry-On that I have here, on the other hand, is screaming a weight-conscious traveler. So if shaving off pounds is your main goal to avoid overweight fees, or just for easier handling overall, this is significantly lighter, over 2 pounds lighter than the Transit, so it's fantastic for 1-bag travel, maybe paired with a small sling for the plane. That easy laptop access makes it work really well as a primary piece without having a separate laptop bag. It feels a little bit more casual and adventurous maybe, but if you are into the vibe of the Bellroy Lite travel backpack, the Lite Carry-On will basically appeal to you. It's kind of like the bag's wheeled sibling. Super oversimplified, I know, but you get the idea. They're pretty much the same. But now we get to go to the really fun part, our chat with JJ, Bellroy's head product designer. I'll preface this by saying that JJ has been with Bellroy for over 10 years and has had a major hand in shaping the products that we know and love. Bellroy is known for being incredibly design-focused, thinking about every detail from how a wallet sits simply in your pocket to how a bag feels and functions over thousands of days of use. Their whole philosophy revolves around a less is better approach, achieving simplicity through solving complex problems. So getting to talk directly with someone who oversees so much of that, the design language, the philosophy, where the brand is headed into 2025 and beyond, was incredibly insightful. So without further ado, we hope that you enjoy our interview with JJ recorded live at the Travel Goods Show. What's up everyone, Emerald here from Emerald's Daily Carry. We're here at the TGA show at the Bellroy booth with JJ, the head designer of Bellroy. We're going to talk a little bit about design philosophy, some of the designs of the specific products, especially new products that are coming out. So we're super excited to have you here on the channel. Welcome JJ, how's it going?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Getting over some jet lag, but it's good to be over in the States and showing off some product. So
yeah. Totally. And I just want to kick it off by talking a little bit about
Bellroy design in general. You guys have a very specific design language. It's very iconic. I think it's super recognizable as like a silhouette, the types of materials that you use. So can you give us a little bit of an overview as far as like what the inspiration is behind that design philosophy?
It's interesting because we've got so many different models that we actually use for like how do we want to approach product design. And it's kind of become a little bit of a language that's evolved over time for it. But I think like when it comes down to designing the product, we've actually found that that's become kind of the easy spot. What's really hard is figuring out what to do because there's so many options that are actually out there in the world. It's like, what kind of bag do you want? And you could make up any bag that you have available, but we have to do the one that's right for us. So normally we have to find like, what's our point of difference? What's our reason for it existing? What is the thing that we're actually bringing to it that makes it unique? And then when we tie that in with the language, that tends to be when we get like the best success, you know, like what's an interesting point of view? And then how can we like package that together?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And when I'm talking to other regular people that aren't super familiar with bags and bag companies, you know, I always try to describe Bellroy as like, because they're like, what is Bellroy? I'm like, Bellroy is kind of like the Apple of bags. Like if you think about like the way that Apple designs products and it's very like sleek and, you know, minimal to a sense, but it's very functional, but also the form is beautiful. And sometimes they're not necessarily first to market, but their take on whatever it is in the carry world is usually a very good take.
Yeah.
So how do you think about that comparison?
It's pretty hard not to be good with being compared to Apple, but I think that when I look at Apple, like they show a world that is like cold. You know, like it's so technical and it's so precise and it's so pristine. I think what we learned, and this is like gone through quite a few iterations, is that if you have the bags be able to drape and the fabric be able to move and you work better with the material, you end up with like this softer kind of approach. And that's really where we have like a much more kind of like human connection feeling to it and try and just be, you know, a little bit more like warm and approachable. You know, we've got so many different families and subgroups within our brand that it's like, depending on what you need, you can kind of approach Bellroy from a bunch of different directions, whether you're someone who's more, you know, outdoors excited, whether you're looking for something for work, whether you want something more playful, like, you know, in cinch, or if you're like a bit more like kind of like tech bro and you can go into transit. Like we try to actually like look at all the different personas and the different people in our office and do product for us that, you know, is really going to connect for, you know, the different ways that we actually like go through the world.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a really great, you know, point of view as far as the difference between you and an Apple is like, I do really get that feeling of warmth from the brand. Like there's a lot of really quirkiness of your products. Like as far as like the way that it looks, it's again, very iconic, but also approachable. I feel like that the, you know, the silhouettes are super slim and minimal looking, but also, you know, has a lot of that function that you're talking about. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, cause I think that, you know, when I think about bags, Bellroy bags, like the backpacks and stuff, they always just look a lot smaller than the literage, even in the same category. You know, if I'm looking at a 30-liter bag from a different company, it could look like a massive thing, but it's the same volume on yours. Are you able to achieve that?
We pull a lot of the organization out to the most exterior walls. So if you have like a laptop sleeve divider that's like a separated section, then you end up actually sacrificing a lot of space actually just by filling the bag with walls and things that stop you actually being able to use all of the available space. So instead we like try and push all of that out to the side and try and really work on scenarios where you can have like one zip gets you access to a whole lot of different elements within it, rather than trying to make, you know, multiple sections on top of each other that then actually just end up consuming up your space.
Yeah, I get that totally. And I think as a packer, when I'm packing stuff, like I can see that when there's just a little bit too much compartmentalization, you are just sacrificing that volume space inside. How do you guys tackle that problem as far as having the right amount of organization while still maintaining the amount of volume that you want out of the bag?
I think organization is something that we try and tone down a little bit. Like I'm sure everyone has that experience of like you pack a bag that's got like, you know, slots and little spots everywhere, and then you lose something and it's like, you know, it's in your bag but you can't actually find it. Like we try and make sure that we've got like just the right amount, which is like a tricky balance to do, but it's like you can easily go in and accidentally become organized. So for instance, like on the Tokyo totes, we have those like 2 popper pockets out to the side. That's one in the middle and then a laptop on the back. Like you can look down and then just basically just drop things into those zones really, really easily without having to think. And so we're trying to make people actually organized without them realizing it.
Yes.
And that's the same on like, you know, like the Ready Pack, like that top brain pocket. It's just got a left and a right spot. And it's like you just intuitively, you start throwing like the contents in either left or right, and you don't actually notice it happening.
Yes.
But if you put too many options in, then you have to think about like how you're actually packing the bag and where you're laying it out, where you're putting things. So that's kind of how we try and minimize the complexity of the organization, but like maximize the actual functionality of it.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that as the design problem is so hard to solve because, you know, you want to give people enough organization, but not so much where it becomes super complicated.
Yeah.
As far as like that process of trying to figure that out for the different personas that you've mentioned, what does that process look like? Do you just kind of take a survey at the office, or you just try to like imagine yourself as this consumer? Like, where would I put my doodads, you know?
Yeah. We don't use the term doodads. We use stuff and things. We know the personas really well. So we have like 3 main kind of like persona archetypes that we design for, but we don't design ever for one single persona. We view it as being like, in different parts of your life, you're going to be like a little bit more outdoorsy,
right,
and you're going to be a little bit more work or a little bit more lifestyle. And we'd actually try and make it that the bags balance between those different personas. So that means that the carry contents changes. So, you know,
right,
does it become like, you know, a MacBook and an iPad and, you know, like other tech accessories? But then what do you actually also want it to be able to carry when you're not doing a work mode? So we actually go through the carry contents quite a bit, and you just see where you trim and then also where you add to it. And then we create, you know, like pouches and organizers and other stuff as well that like, you know, like a great bag is something that you can pack and fill. But if you put a tech kit in it, then you've got like a tech boss kind of bag, and then you take it out and then you got a bag that's going to work for the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, totally. I'm on that pouch life as well. I think if you're a person who owns multiple bags, it's just so much easier to transport things from bag to bag when you've got it all in a pouch versus all of that in individual organization. Just going through, you know, the specific design features of like some of your really popular products, you know, I look at your sling bags as like, it's a very, very popular sling bag on the market. I think it's that really iconic sling bag that when people are like, I want a sling bag and they're looking for it, like the Bellroy sling bag is always there as like one of the top options. And one of the features that I want to talk about is the compression ability of the sling.
Yeah.
Talk about the design of that, because I think it's a super unique touch point of the bag.
Yeah, totally. The design, like, so the Venture Sling, like I'm carrying one now. Like the design aspect of this was born during COVID, when we were like kind of all of a sudden, like, because before that we were kind of doing work product, right?
Yeah.
And it was like really felt like our office is like the place where, you know, we're gonna make work carry cool. And then work became home, and home became work, and then all you wanted to do was kind of get outside and do something else. And we had like lockdowns, but fortunately, like Tara, who's like our like rad pattern maker, she lives like really close to me, and we would go and meet at this duck pond, like going through samples and chatting about it together. We were working with Aaron, who's like Denier Lab, who's like was over in Utah at that point. And so we would be doing one thing here, and then he would be sewing a mock-up, and then we'd be talking with Sheena, another designer of ours who was in New Zealand, and we'd actually had this like really kind of collaborative effort that was going on to try and make like a different sling for us. Prior to that, we didn't have any, like, we had like a little bit of compression, but we hadn't actually like cracked the code properly yet. We had like hints of it, but we hadn't figured out the access win. And that opposing end zip ended up being the thing that meant that we could allow that compression to just really push in, but then also to really be able to expand out, because without that access style, you always end up getting like limited by the zip having to push down, as opposed to being able to imagine like you get like two triangles pushing against each other in the opposite direction, and then they can stand up together. that was really the bit that just kind of like clicked. And then it was from that point we're like, oh, okay, we've got a thing, and that became the Venture Sling initially, and then the Light Sling as well. And both of them I think have been like super successful.
Yes.
We went to town on the materials with them both as well, and it's just been like, yeah, a great movement for the brand that was at the right time, and just really I think struck a chord globally that people just wanted, you know, sling carry. And like we're in Vegas now, so it's like I can't help but think of The Hangover, where he's like, you know, it's European, yeah, totally. Whereas now like that's totally over. Like, yeah, people are just really recognize that functionality that you actually get from it.
Yeah, no, I think sling carry is definitely on the rise. 1.5 bag travel. If you are doing any type of travel, you have a sling bag with all of your contents, like things you want to take on the plane. And then when you get to your destination, you can use it as your day bag.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, like, you know, you said that you had this design problem. I want it to do this function where it does like the compression feature. We need to figure out how to solve that.
Yeah.
Talk about that process. What is that like? Is you just iterate a lot and then you have to try to find the right material, or have to try to find the correct patterning, you know, like what does that process look like?
It's patterning. On this one in particular, like for slings, was patterning, and it was like quite a bit of trial and error, but also the zip element was actually something that was done for a duffel probably about 6 months earlier, where there was a trial sample that was made, and then it never worked on that. So it's like you keep exploring in different areas, and then you get these like little moments that you need to capture, and you actually just start to bridge them all together and pull them all in to try and make like the right insights that are applicable for the right product. That it didn't work on a duffel was great, because we had it done it on a duffel, then maybe we wouldn't have done it on the sling. But it's like when you're exploring so much, you just end up with like all these little pieces of a puzzle that you've got to try and pull together at some point.
And now, like, kind of jumping in more to the actual design process, I know that sometimes that runway can be extremely long, like years and years and years of development, trying to, you know, figure out what that function is, like how big is the, you know, the bag that you're trying to make. At the beginning stages of that, when you are at the drawing board, what is the bag that we're trying to make? How do you guys come to that decision? Is it a lot of like market research, or you just have a good vibe about like, I think people really want slings. Hopefully in 5 years when this thing comes out, you know, like how does that work?
It's a bit of both. So I think that you definitely do get feedback. We get feedback from like, you know, our sales team. We get feedback from, I don't know, like the feng shui of the world, where you just look out and you just see what's kind of happening, what trends are starting to emerge. We also just have like, you know, personal projects that start to bubble up, where it's like, I really don't feel like I've got this need satisfied, and it ends up being a bit of a mix of each of those. So we tend to take those inspiration points and then work on a little bit of like a pre-plan and a bit of a map. And we find that once we know what we want, the design part actually comes a lot easier. It's like figuring out what to do is really the challenging bit. I think you'll see that, you know, for us, we've kind of like started small and we've just kept evolving larger. So we started with like, you know, pocket carry, where it was all wallets and slim wallets, and then we moved into, you know, more kind of like daily accessories, and then slowly like phone, and then iPad and laptop, and then like slings and bags, backpacks, and then now to luggage. It's kind of this like scale evolution as we've built the brand, and that's kind of how we've been able to like imagine that mapping kind of like building out is like, how do we just keep like growing in a way that pushes our own comfort level, but that doesn't actually push us beyond the boundaries of what people think of as Bellroy.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great scaling, you know, world domination plan that you've got going here.
Yeah, definitely world domination. Yeah, totally.
As far as like going to the luggage aspect of it, I know that you guys are just launching some new luggage bags.
Yeah.
Talk about that process. You know, I think there's a lot of new luggage coming out on the market right now. What was the point where, you know, Bellroy was like, I think everyone wants roller luggage, and we're going to take a stab at it to put the Bellroy touch on that piece of luggage?
Well, like when you're thinking about like carryology and carryologists, you know, like that it's really hard to get like great packing advice from a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going on a long haul trip, like everyone has 2 cents that they can throw in. Like your grandma is going to be like, oh, hey, when you're going, don't forget to pack X. And they'll have like tips on like what you need to bring for that level. So it's kind of like a peak carry experience for us. So I think that it's so natural that we would end up there. Like, it was something that I think we could have done quicker, but actually we wanted to make sure that we understood some of our key philosophies before we actually just jumped in. So our bags are really part of that, like, 1+ carry. Like, you'll see what we've actually got on the stand behind us. It's like we partner our products with other products because we know that you end up with such an improvement when you try and carry like everything in one bag. Just doesn't work. One of the funny things about it was that we were trying to decide if we would do like soft carry or like hard. And we had like, you know, that soft carry is like a little bit like an unsung hero, and like how could we approach that? And we've done like a light tipper for that. And then we also had like hard carry as being like, well, you have to have this. and it was quite interesting asking people. It's like, you're either one or the other. Like, it doesn't feel like there's people who really flip too much between. And so rather than just making one piece, we've actually like made both pieces because they both signify like a different philosophy on wheel carrying. Like the light tipper is like, it ends up being really soft. It's very, very light. Like, we've got it down to 2.1 kilos. It has very, very unique like feeling to it. And it's great if you're trying to like cram it into different spaces and stuff because it actually compresses. And then when we have like the transit as well, which is, you know, the hard shell, but that is like, you either feel that flexibility of like, I'm only packing a little bit, I want my bag to shrink like to that, and I want to be able to access things on the go, or you're more in the transit family where it's like a hard shell and you're like, I actually want a vault that holds my stuff and it just keeps it protected. Like nothing is going to happen to anything inside there. And I don't care that it takes up all that space. Even if it's half full, I need to know that I've got that that stability to it. Rather than going like, hey, Bellroy has one opinion, we're like, oh, actually both are totally valid ways of packing, totally valid ways of carrying. And so we've ended up doing both.
And as far as the Bellroy take on those products, you know, I know you talked a little bit about like the decision of we are going to make a hard and a soft, but what was the couple of key features, key elements that you were like, we're going to put that Bellroy touch on that?
So for the hard shell, like for the transit, what we wanted to do was try and get a form that was like unique, but not like polarizing or like offensive either, because it felt like there was a lot of, like you were saying, there's a lot of like travel product coming out, but it's very homogenous. Like it looks a lot like when you're going between like your Away, July, Monos, Horizon, like you have a very similar choice, and it's like, how many like lines do you want up and down the bag? Like a couple of like smaller changes, but it's like, from an aesthetic point of view, they're very, very similar. So we wanted to try and make an aesthetic that had a look to it, but that was actually had a functional base to it. So the shaping and the styling of it is actually around, reducing high impact areas and just like knocking those corners and edges off, making sure that, you know, we transition the surfaces in a way that like is interesting and kind of like visually appealing, but that there's a functional base at the core of it was really important for us. And we went with materials that were all about dependability because, you know, when you're traveling, you don't want anything that's going to mess up or be too annoying or difficult to use. So it was really about making sure that each of the components was like rock solid, would perform well, didn't have anything that was like too tricky to have to use or learn, and was just like, just easy. Like it's like travel's kind of like you want to be comforted. And a lot of what we've done with other travel packs is like, it should be a good bag like every day, because if you're using it every day, then when you travel with it, you already know how to use it and you don't have that added burden.
No, I totally get that. I think especially for travel, the justification in my mind that I always like tell myself is I'm okay with spending the extra $50, $100, whatever it ends up being, for this to be a really good quality product, because the worst thing that would happen is that this breaks in the middle of my travel. If the zipper stops working, if the wheel falls off, if the handle breaks, like that would be catastrophic failure, and I would be like, all my luggage is on the floor now, you know, like that's the justification as far as like, it is a good thing to try to invest in these things that like, this is my life for 2 weeks in this bag, you know, make sure that it doesn't break. But just speaking about that, you know, I know that for your new luggage, you created like a system where it's repairable. There's a lot of all the parts, sounds like, that could move or break somehow are repairable. And I just wanted to know, like, I'm sure that was a design decision, like that had to be made pretty early on in the process to make sure that there were, openings or whatever for you to be able to get to things to repair them. So talk a little bit about that, like why that was an important design decision to make it repairable. And then was there any challenges as far as like trying to fit that into the design?
First bit is that it's user repairable. So it's like what we wanted to do, because we had this like vision of like things break. Like the reality is it's like if you end up having to put it underneath the plane, like things happen under there that, we've all seen the videos of just destruction and chaos that goes on with the luggage. And it's like, imagine that you're in that scenario and like a part is broken. And we had this like great thought on like, if you could contact Bellroy in that scenario and we could send you out the part like while you're on holiday, and then you get the chance to actually replace it and repair it and come home with your bag repaired. But that is like the best case scenario. Even like, we have heard, like we've been talking to people and stories about repair and stuff where it's like the bag goes away for 3 months and then comes back. And it's like, that just doesn't seem right for us, that it's like, there's decisions that we could make in the design process that would actually let us have access, as you're talking about, and do that from the start, that it's like, you can go in with a Allen key, like a hex head, and you can unscrew and take a part off and then replace it, is just like, that's so, I think, unique, but it makes so much more sense that it's like, if you can follow an IKEA like construction, then you can repair your own luggage. So why shouldn't you actually be able to have, ownership over that step and have something where we can actually like support you getting your repair quicker and like in an easier way? Yeah,
totally. And so as far as like putting that as a stamp of like, this is a feature that we want, how difficult was it to try to design around that?
I think when it comes to what we've done on this version, there's just design decisions that ended up being made that we just had to take care for it. It's like either way, it wasn't going to be an easy project and it was going to be complicated. But if you just add that in from the very start, then it's something that you can work towards and you can integrate in really easily. The problem is like, if you have that idea at the end and you've started making the luggage and you're like, oh, why don't we do this thing? And you're like, oh, that would have been great like 6 months ago. Like, I think that was the part for us on this project, was that setting up the goal of what we wanted and then what was the purpose of each of them was the long part. And then once we actually had that going, it was like, oh, okay, we understand like the values of each of the tipper and the spinner. We understand what our values are as far as repairability is concerned. We understand what our aesthetic values are when it comes to like, how does the form of the bag actually need to look? That next step was like a lot of refinement, but we knew what the essence was, and that was kind of like the big insight for us.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good insight as far as like just in general, the creative process, like there's always, it's so much easier to fix things in pre-planning versus when you're already like kind of running through it. And, at that point, it's a little bit too late. Now you're kind of scrambling, So I think that when you are in that creative process, like, you think that this is all a bunch of waste of time. Like, we should just we should just make it. But really, when you do take the time to tell people, like, these are the rules, these are like what we want it to do, then all the design decisions sound like that they become a little bit secondhand. Like, they're like, oh, well, based on the things, based on the things that we said we wanted, this is just what we're going to do.
Totally. And I think that also sets us up for like that longer vision. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. This is like the principles that we have established, and we can see that applying as we actually move out into, a longer time frame and you start having more luggage on the market, you still have those values.
Kind of moving from luggage into maybe the future of Bellroy, there's a lot of new products that came out already this year. I know that you guys also had a toiletry bag come out. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe what's kind of coming out in the future as far as Bellroy?
Maybe let me think. I think that what we've done, so like our team has gotten to a size now where I think that we've got like a really good group and we've got a very long tenure of like our crew. Like we've got like such a good collection of different shaped designers that are actually all on the team. So what we've been doing is actually coming through and refining and tightening up a lot of our product and tightening up a lot of our material stories and our color stories and just bringing everything together to try and like make sure that we're doing more of what we've been doing that's been working really well, but we've just found a way to kind of like just keep improving upon it. And so the product that's coming through for this year, I think I'm getting like well, we're already working on next year now.
Right.
But I'm getting really excited for how we're actually going to start to be able to talk to new audiences in a bit of a different way. Like I think for us, our lifestyle audience has been something that we haven't found that right, really easy connection in, and we have like a new line of slings that's coming out in a few months, and more product that's actually going to be supporting into that new family, basically a new classic family. So
I think you brought up a really great point as far as the families go, because Bellroy has a lot of collections of families. And you're saying that like some of the family choices, does that come from the persona like we want to create for that specific type of person?
Very much so. So, and as I was saying earlier, it's like we don't ever design for 100% one persona, because we know that balance changes. So our families actually let us go, you know, like it's like 30-30-30, you know, kind of thing. Like it's like a relatively easy split, or like one of them is much more heavily represented in there. So it kind of gives us the freedom to, I think, for one brand to actually design authentically, because when there's a little bit of each type of person in each product, it means that we can just kind of like play with the dials and still have that like consistency visually that keeps changing, but it ends up being like a very different use case and for very different people.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool take on the whole design process, and trying to get that specific dial in as far as, you know, we want it to be good for this person, but also it could be good for kind of everybody, you know, everybody can. And I think that's the part about Bellroy that is so unique, is that it's a very approachable brand. You know, you can find, like you're saying, like basically any bag for anybody, for any use case, which is really cool. Yeah, thank you, JJ, for talking to us here at Emerald's Daily Carry, like talking about all of the cool design stuff that you guys have going on, and like the design philosophy. I think it's super exciting to be able to like hear the inside scoop of like how does Bellroy work? Where's the mind going? Like how are these decisions getting made? Because again, I think you guys are doing a really good job as far as like all of that, and that's why that people in the carry community are so interested in what Bellroy is always doing.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye.
And that's going to do it for this one. Huge thanks again to JJ and the entire Bellroy team for making this video possible. Everyone that we met at the show was super awesome, and big props for getting us these pre-release samples so quickly. If you like this video and you want to help support the channel, we dropped some affiliate links in the description below for both the Transit and Lite Carry-Ons, and maybe some other Bellroy gear that we love. Using those links gives us a small kickback at no extra cost to you, and it genuinely helps us keep creating content like this. But hey, no pressure at all. If affiliate links just are not your thing, simply liking this video or sharing it with a friend who might be eyeing some new luggage really helps a ton out too. But I do want to hear from you. Based on our first looks, which bag would you pick, the Transit or the Lite? Let me know down in the comments. And like we mentioned, we have a lot more travel goods show coverage coming up, including chats with some folks from Thule and Chrome Industries. So if you enjoyed hearing from JJ, you might want to stick around for those as well. Make sure that you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out. My name is Emerald from Emerald's Daily Carry. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.